back to this edition of 1-1 Sports, where today we'll be talking about
College Lacrosse
Champions League.
And it all starts right now. Welcome inside another edition of 101 Sports. Let's get things started off with the quick hitters. And Chase, the NCAA tournament has wrapped up. The men's side and UConn, best team in the tournament from start to finish.
UConn dominated. I think they were only down for about a total of 30-ish minutes for the entire tournament, which is just insane. I mean, we've seen dominant runs before, but this is quite the dominant run from the Huskies, now becoming. Would you consider them one of the blue bloods?
I think you have to.
There's an argument to be made now.
There's an argument to be made, especially because they've won 5 titles since 1999. They've been under 3 different head coaches with Calhoun, Ollie, and now Dan Hurley. Cements the Hurley legacy in college coaching. They already had it in playing with Bobby Hurley, winning 2 titles at Duke. But I mean, UConn, you mentioned they trailed for 30 minutes in the tournament. They trailed for 5 minutes in the last 4 games. Okay, so Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four, championship game. They trailed for a total of 5 minutes, and 4 of that was in the championship game to San Diego State, who started incredibly hot. But we talked about this off air. It's one of those times where you're like, oh, you know, if this team had played this team, they wouldn't have won. UConn was by far and away the best team in the country in March Madness, and they kept getting better throughout the tournament. I mean, just look at what they did with the Damasceno down low. We think the big man is going away. He dominated inside. Final Four most outstanding player. I mean, Dan Hurley runs the show. Just a fantastic, fantastic effort by the Huskies. Undoubtedly the #1 team.
And it felt a little bit like San Diego State had a little bit of momentum coming off their buzzer beater. The only one of the tournament, if I'm not mistaken. But
one of them, yeah.
UConn just complete domination, 76-59. But also happened, UFC 287, Alex Pereira versus Israel
Adesanya and Pereira. The rematch is on lock. Okay, again, Pereira, low record, 7-1, but the champion right now. Adesanya, many people thought he could not be beaten, and then Pereira comes in and knocks him out.
I was one of those that thought
I thought he couldn't lose. I thought he couldn't lose.
But now we're finally getting that rematch, which it seems like these rematches always get stretched out, but this one actually happened not too close to the last one. Last time it was a technical knockout in the 5th round. What do you see happening this go around?
I mean, Adesanya, he just has such an incredible reach, and he just has such power and such conviction in his kicks and in his punches. So I think Adesanya, again, we thought he would win maybe early. I think, this time he really sees the challenge from Pereira. So I think if Adesanya can, stay away, get some quick jabs in on the body, and make this an endurance fight like he did the first time, but again, he got knocked out. So as long as he can kind of stay away, make Pereira tire himself out a little bit, I think Adesanya can come away maybe by decision.
And it's a big week for sports, especially with the MLB. Just finished up their opening week. I get ridiculed a lot for not watching baseball and not being the biggest Pittsburgh Pirates fan. They make it hard.
Your city wears black and gold. You got to cheer for all of it.
But right now, the Pittsburgh Pirates just swept the Boston Red Sox, and I've never loved baseball more.
Oh, God.
4-2. Brian Reynolds is making an MVP. Now, how many games are in the season?
162.
So,
And Brian Reynolds is probably getting traded.
The playoffs are right around the corner.
Oh, God.
The World Series.
Brian Reynolds will get traded before the Pirates make the playoffs, especially.
Listen.
I will give you this, though. The NL Central is the worst division in baseball, and it's not close. The only other one that I could think of is the AL Central. But the NL Central is, completely just awful.
So what you're saying is the World Series is right there for the taking.
The World Series is not right there for the taking because I don't think you guys have a shot. Again, we give the Mets a lot of crap on this show. But if you guys got in a 3-game series with the Mets, I'm sorry.
Listen, O'Neal Cruz is 6'7".
He's not 6'7".
And that makes him a fantastic baseball player. Absolute rocket.
What position does he play?
Shortstop.
Okay, there you go.
Brian Hayes, best third baseman ever.
No.
Ji-Hwan Bae, amazing outfielder.
No.
Carlos Santana revived his career.
He revived it last year with the Mariners.
Who?
The Seattle Mariners, Julio Rodriguez, George Kirby.
Ooh. Now that's a name.
That's a name you can get behind, but also pitch clock violations, right? Manny Machado gets a pitch clock violation in one of San Diego's games. He gets ejected for complaining about it. He was in the batter's box, but did not make eye contact with the pitcher. Look at me, Jason. Look at me. We just held eye contact. We could now throw a pitch, and we could bat. Because that's what you have to do. He did not make eye contact. He was undoing his batting gloves. I think the pitch clock, it's a better thing because it's speeding games up, but that is a bogus violation.
I agree with the bogusness.
The
bogusness, if you want to be technical about the violation. But I am one of the results of the pitch clock. I love it. Games are down by an average of half an hour, which just makes them a lot easier to watch as a casual fan. Like you said, 162 regular season games, that's hard to keep up.
It's a marathon. Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is we should adapt the college baseball method, where there's less ad breaks in between innings that are shorter, and take out the RSNs, because if I do recall, our local Elon Phoenix played a game against Towson this past weekend, or 2 weekends ago. It lasted 1 hour and 52 minutes. I think that would get more people involved.
I think you might have some purists that are upset with you, but I agree.
There's no pitch clock. They just played a quick game. So I think if, we don't have, Charles Barkley and Steph Curry giving us Subway commercials every 10 minutes, I think we'd be fine. We can wrap it up.
We need more Burger King commercials. I feel like they've kind of dropped off a little bit. I don't hear them as much.
Thank goodness, because I could not hear the "you rule" one more time.
I like hearing "I rule" and "you rule." Next up, we got college lacrosse.
Great segue.
Great segue. Hello and welcome back to 1-1 Sports, where right now we're talking about the hottest sport in America, the one everybody's talking about. Bryson, we're talking about college men's lacrosse. And I know me and you are very excited to talk about this topic today. Let's talk about the big question everybody's wondering. Who is the #1 team in the country?
Well, I'd have to say the pollsters got it right in ranking Duke #1. I mean, they're probably just the best overall team, both offensively and defensively. Currently 4th in the country in goals per game at 15.6, 11th in assists per game, and that puts them 3rd overall in points. They are just very, very productive on offense. But on the other side, they're also very good on defense. Currently 11th in scoring defense and 10th in ground balls. And on top of that, they're 7th in terms of face-off percentage, and their goalie, William Helm, is also 13th in the country in save percentage. And so they just have a great, great all-around game where, sure, they may not be the best necessarily at something, but they are very, very close to being perfect on all facets of the game.
And I'll be honest, it's hard to argue against that. I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate. I'm going to go with the hot selection, Notre Dame. And lucky enough for us and all the lacrosse fans, we're going to see this matchup this weekend, April 8th, on ESPNU. But my argument for Notre Dame is right now their only loss is to UVA, which it was a 5-goal loss, but they've been ranked #1 most of the season. They've been dominating all their other matchups. Their only really close one was against Maryland, which was that 1-goal win in overtime. And it's been an easier schedule when compared to the other top teams for Duke. And that's really why I've got Notre Dame over them at the moment.
No, I can understand that argument, definitely. But Duke has still beaten 5 ranked teams so far this season. And their only loss was an early loss against a ranked Jacksonville team. And that was only by 1 goal. So that was actually kind of more of a fluke, I would argue, than anything. And then you also got to recognize that Notre Dame lost to Virginia while Duke beat Virginia just a couple of days ago. And so using the transitive property of sports, which that has certainly never failed us ever before, certainly, then therefore Duke would win. However, more seriously, I just think Duke statistic-wise is better, and we've seen what they can do against Virginia and other top-tier programs, and so I think that they're going to eke out a win over Notre Dame.
Well, like I said, don't disagree with you, because when it comes time for the national championship, I've got those 2 teams in the national championship. I believe right now these are the 2 best teams in lacrosse. That's why we're arguing over whether they're 1 or 2. Right now they are #1 and 2 in the RPI rankings. But for Notre Dame, you have an elite duo in Pat and Chris Kavanaugh. They're one of the best duos in lacrosse right now. Pat with 43 points on the year and Chris with 35 points on the year. And then you got one of the best goalies in the nation in Liam Entenmann, who's got 56% save percentage on the year. I definitely think when we're talking about Duke and Notre Dame as the two best teams in the country, I think it's going to be those two at the end of the year.
Now, I also agree that Duke is going to make it to the championship, but I don't agree that it's going to be the Fighting Irish in the title game. I think it's actually going to be Virginia. It's going to be a rematch between Duke and Virginia, and here's why. Virginia has the best offense in the country right now, and it's not even close, averaging 18 goals per game, 30 points per game, and on top of that, they've scored 25 goals on 2 different occasions. They are just phenomenal on the offensive side of the field, and their defense is at least serviceable enough to where they can get some really, really quality wins.
Yes, and when we talk about the top teams in lacrosse, right now it's those top 4 with Duke, Notre Dame, Maryland, and UVA, and that's where my argument against UVA comes in, because they lost to Maryland, and Maryland right now has 2 unranked losses on the year. It's just been really a transition period for the Terps, who usually are the powerhouse in lacrosse, across from UVA. But Maryland right now, they're looking to reload after losing some of their key pieces last year, and Logan Wisnauskas and Rowan Puglisi. And right now they're also dealing with an injury at goalie, but the backup has been incredible. So really that's where my argument comes in with UVA. Again, a close loss to Maryland. It's one of the best games of the year. But on that page, Notre Dame did win against Maryland, so that's where my argument comes for them. And I definitely think no matter how you square it up, it's going to be one of those top 4 teams at the end of the year.
I certainly agree, but I think you also have to remember that that loss came into overtime. And whenever you play Maryland, there's always a pretty good chance that the Terrapins are going to win, whether it be a rebuilding year or not. Maryland is always one of the best programs in men's lacrosse. And then you also look at Virginia has still beaten 4 top 25 team or top 20 teams overall. They've beaten Notre Dame, they've beaten Ohio State, Johns Hopkins, and Harvard. They even put 25 on Harvard, which that is hard to do against any team ranked in the top 20 at any time. I just think their offense is just too explosive that no one can really slow them down, and the few times that they have, they've still put up pretty decent numbers on offense. It's just that their defense has struggled at certain times, as we saw in that Maryland game. But I just think Virginia has the offensive weaponry to just go really, really far into the playoffs, and that can carry them into that championship game.
I mean, Connor Schellenberger, Virginia's best player, is right up there with Brendan O'Neill for the Tuarton front runner. I mean, it's going to be a tight race down the line, but Duke is stacked on offense and defense, so I agree with you that they're probably going to end up in that championship weekend. But tons of lacrosse left to be played. I think a couple of these teams are matched up, sometimes even twice the rest of the way, so it'll be exciting the rest of the season to see how this plays out. But right now, that's all we got for lacrosse. Next up, Champions League.
With the Champions League quarterfinals starting early next week, we bring our resident footballer and cross-country champion, Caden Strickland, to talk about the 4 matchups we got. All right. First off, all right, Real Madrid-Chelsea, big matchup, 2 historic clubs.
You know, let's be honest, Chelsea's lucky to be here. This is about the most mid team you can find. They're sitting at 11th in the Premier League, 10, 9, and 10. Real Madrid should make quick work of them.
And I mean, just like Chelsea, they just brought in Frank Lampard to be their resident manager just for the end of the season. Because they released Graham Potter, and like you said, 11th in the Premier League. You got to think Real Madrid's going to go all over them, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. It'll be a quick, easy matchup for them.
Quick 2 legs?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, but probably the most interesting matchup we have. Man City and Bayern, right?
Yeah, of course. This is the one that I'm looking forward to the most, and whatever team makes it through this matchup, I think they have a real shot to win it all. You'll get Bayern, and they dominated Inter Milan and Barcelona in the group stage, and then they took that same energy and brought it against PSG, who I thought had a real opportunity to make something happen here in this tournament. Of course, they have 2 of the greatest football players we've ever seen in Messi and Mbappe, but they manhandled them. So Choupo-Moting, he's been playing really well along with Coleman and Kimmich. And you've got Cancelo anchoring that defense. When you've got a guy like Alphonso Davies coming off the bench, that just goes to show the strength and depth that this roster has. Man City, they're the betting favorite to win it all right now. And when you take Erling Haaland, he has 10 goals right now, which is leading the Champions League, and it's not even close. I think he's the best player in the world right now. But even though they're the favorite, I'm going to take Bayern in this one.
I think Bayern just all around, you have to say it's the best team in the world. Because like you mentioned, with Choupo-Moting up top, Kingsley Coleman on the left, Kimmich at the midfield, and then you mentioned that back line with Jan Sommer in goal. He's just been excellent.
He's been stout. He's been really stout in goal. And through 6 games in the Champions League, they've only allowed 2 goals, scoring 18 for themselves. So that back line, in my opinion, is the best in the world right now.
I mean, and you lose Robert Lewandowski, you lose him to Barcelona, and then you just bring in Choupo-Moting, the striker from Cameroon, and he just puts in more goals in the back of the net.
I know. He's been amazing for them.
And then, okay, AC Milan, Napoli, an all-Italian quarterfinal. Who do you got coming out?
Well, Italian teams haven't done great in the Champions League in recent years. 2 of them meeting right now. Napoli, let's just put it straight up, they're the hottest team in the world right now. They're leading Serie A by a really wide margin, and they absolutely dominated their group. Avica Kvaratskhelia, I hope I didn't pronounce your name.
Yeah, I think you got it.
But I really like this guy's game. He's become a superstar, really out of nowhere in the last year. And when you pair him up with a guy like Peter Zielinski, it forms one of the deadliest duos in all of football. Their defense it hasn't been as good as Bayern's, but they've only let up 6 goals throughout the whole tournament. And you've got guys like Mario Rui and Giovanni Di Lorenzo, some superstars on that back line. I do like AC Milan. I think they're a good team, but they're not going to win this one. Napoli's going to put the work on them. Milan beat them last time out. I think it was 4-0, but that's not going to happen again.
I mean, I think you could make the one case for AC Milan if you look at who they have up top, just with Olivier Giroud and Zlatan Ibrahimovic. That's a lot of size up top for Napoli to handle. And again, Di Lorenzo and Mario Rui are both very good fullbacks. But I think if you manage the goal-scoring abilities of Zlatan off the bench and Olivier Giroud up top, that presents a very difficult matchup. And like you said, it's an all-Italian matchup too. So really anything can happen.
Yeah, they're not going to outscore guys like Kvaratskhelia. And, it's a really tough – Napoli's a really tough team just to outscore.
Yeah, like you said, they're the hottest team in the world right now. You got to give them that at least.
Yeah.
And speaking of another Milan team, Inter Milan, also in the quarterfinals, taking on SL Benfica out of Liga Porto.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be another really close, really exciting matchup, just because I don't think either of these teams are very good when you look at the rest of the teams on the slate next week. But Benfica's really hot right now, and they've quietly been playing some of the best football in Europe. They destroyed Club Brugge, which was a pretty light matchup, pretty light draw for them in the first round, but nonetheless, they did what they needed to do in the round of 16. And they've won 8 games in a row. They've been playing really well at the group stage and in round 1. And Grimaldo's been playing really well with Gonzalo Ramos. But they're going to have their hands full with a guy like Mauro Martinez from Milan. But I do like Inter Milan a lot. I do think that AC Milan is better than them, the second best team in their own city. Like I said in recent years, Italian teams haven't done too well, so I'm going to take Benfica in this one.
And like you said, but we've seen this a lot. We've always seen kind of that, dark horse come out of a non-Big Five league in Europe. So we had Ajax a few years ago. We have SL Benfica this year. Like you said, Grimaldo, he might be the best left back in the world right now, besides João Cancelo. But, Benfica, you could probably see him taking this game, don't you think? You can see him taking these 2 legs?
Yeah, definitely. That's what I think is going to happen, too.
Okay, so now we've got the semifinals now. So you have Real Madrid taking it and Bayern. Who wins in that one?
This is going to be an incredible matchup. At the top of the bracket, we've got teams like Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Manchester City,
Chelsea, 4 historic clubs, yeah.
And then you got the bottom, who's a lot weaker, I think. But this is going to be a great matchup for whoever comes out of these 2. Real Madrid right now sitting at second behind Barcelona and La Liga, but they destroyed them yesterday. They destroyed Liverpool as well in the first round, and they played really well so far in the group stage. I don't think their roster matched up as well from top to bottom against Bayern, so I'm going to take the German club in this one, headed to the finals. Okay,
then you got Napoli and Benfica in the other semifinal. Who do you have facing Bayern?
Well, they're not the big-name teams we're used to seeing in a semifinal for the Champions League, but they are 2 of the hottest clubs in the world right now. It's going to be a fun matchup. I'm going to pick Napoli to come out just because they have a better roster from top to bottom, in my opinion.
Okay, so Bayern-Napoli final. Who you got raising the trophy?
I've got Bayern. If it's not Bayern, it's going to be another club that comes from the top of the bracket.
You got to think it's either going to be whoever wins that quarterfinal game between Man City and Bayern, that's who's winning all.
For sure. It just sucks that these 2 teams are facing each other so
in the final 8, they're facing they're facing each other so early.
These are the 2 best teams in the world right now.
They have to.
I don't think anybody's going to argue with me there.
You throw Napoli in there, it's just that they're the hottest team in the world. But if you look at roster depth and just roster talent, I think right now it's far and away, like you said, with Bayern and Man City. Maybe if you look underneath, you find PSG, who lost in the round of 16, and then you put potentially another team in there, maybe. But right now, it just sucks to see that Bayern's playing Man City in the quarterfinal. But that's going to do it here for Caden Strickland. Champions League coverage starts on Tuesday with 2 matchups. Thank you for watching another edition of 101 Sports.
And make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
And remember, whose side are you on?
Okay.
I'm gonna. Fine, you throw it.